It's the third episode in the third Tuesday of the third month, presented to you by the third host. Hi, my name is David, and you're listening to the VCH podcast. We are going to be learning how metabolism works from food to feces. By the end of this episode, you'd know everything you need to know concerning the fundamentals of metabolism in the human body. We won't be able to cover all. It's a very vast topic. However, we'll be able to cover enough to make you seem like you know it all. What we'll use as the example for this episode is a particular food common to Nigerians mostly. It's pounded yam, aka inyo, with vegetable soup and fish. This meal I just mentioned contains practically every nutrient you'd actually need from any meal at all. It contains carbohydrates from the pounded yam. It contains vitamins from the vegetable. It contains fiber from the vegetable and oil from the oil used to prepare the vegetable soup. It contains minerals mixed in the vegetable soup. It contains proteins that are in both the stock fish and the fresh fish we will be using in this example. And it contains nucleic acid, in fact, from those fishes, then water. It's why it's a true balanced diet. First off, why do we pick metabolism? Metabolism is a topic that cuts across practically all fields in life sciences, especially. So it's a knowledge any life scientist will need, and it's also a knowledge about the workings of any human body. This would greatly help you to understand how exactly to take care of yourself better. Metabolism is all chemical reactions that occur in your body. Even right now, as you are listening to me, it's due to chemical reactions you can even listen to what I'm saying, then understand what I'm saying, then interpret it in your own terms. It's all through chemical reactions. So you can see it's truly a very vast topic. However, our metabolism will majorly be on how food is processed throughout your body, what is derived from it, and what remains. First, understand metabolism is broken into 4 major stages. The first stage is digestion, followed by absorption, then extraction of nutrients, and lastly, elimination of waste. We'll be taking each of the nutrients found in our meal, and we will learn how each of those nutrients are metabolized because they have different metabolic paths. Note, these foods are eaten together as a whole. However, we'll discuss them individually. First off, pounded yam, aka inyo, a well-known carbohydrate. It contains carbohydrates in the form of starch. Inyo is a swallow, so usually it's not chewed. Chewing, as you'd likely know, is a process of breaking down food into smaller sizes. This permits saliva, which contains certain important enzymes such as salivary amylase, to penetrate into the broken down carbohydrates, for instance, and break down the starch it comes in contact with into disaccharides. Starch itself is a polysaccharide, that is a large molecule. Disaccharides make up these polysaccharides. An example of a common disaccharide gotten from carbohydrates is maltose. Note that not all of the carbohydrates in the mouth is broken down into maltose by the salivary amylase. The food is swallowed through the esophagus through a process called peristalsis. This is how your body moves food from one position to another, like an earthworm actually. The movement of an earthworm, that's it. Nature is conservative. So it moves these food chunks that are partly broken down into the stomach. The stomach, with the hydrochloric acid in it, mixes the food more and forms chyme. This is a semi-solid form of whatever food you eat. Then this food heading to the intestine comes across what is called the pancreas. The pancreas contains amylase, the enzyme we spoke about earlier in the mouth. Now this amylase breaks whichever polysaccharide that hasn't been broken down by the salivary amylase. So make sure the body is able to access every form of nutrients from the meal. The broken down carbohydrates then starts heading to the small intestine. Now the small intestine has three major divisions. The first division from the pancreas to the 1/3 of the small intestine is called the duodenum. The next division, the 2/3 of the intestine, is called the jejunum. Then the third division is called the ileum. From the ileum, we then have the junction that leads to the large intestine, the colon. By the time your carbohydrates in the pounded yam reaches the small intestine, certain enzymes called brush border enzymes, I also don't know why their names is that strange, they break down the disaccharides such as maltose formed through the action of amylase enzymes into monosaccharides. These are the smaller units that make up disaccharides. These brush border enzymes are usually found on the surface of the small intestine. Examples are lactase, sucrase, and maltase. These break down the following disaccharides: lactose, sucrose, and maltose respectively. Straightforward, right? Yeah, again, nature likes being simple sometimes. Sometimes, few times, sorry. Now from here, we go on to the process of absorption. Now whatever we've been speaking about being broken down isn't actually in the body yet. It's just following through a cavity located in the body, which is the gut or the gastrointestinal tract. The body still doesn't actually have access to this. Imagine a worker driving home from work and he is on the express. That is digestion. From when he starts entering streets to go to his house, then that is absorption. And absorption is where the biochemistry starts seeping in. Now there are four major ways nutrients are absorbed by the body. First way is passive diffusion. This is when cells accept whatever nutrient is coming in without needing any energy or any effort being put by the body. The next is facilitated diffusion. Here these cells need help, but they don't generate the energy themselves. Instead, they use energy already generated by the third system called active transport. Here ATP, adenosine triphosphate, it's the energy currency of the whole body. It is used to drive molecules such as nutrients in and out of the body. And lastly, endocytosis. It's like what amoeba does. Large molecules are engulfed by the cell, literally. Okay, back to carbohydrate metabolism. When carbohydrates start passing through the small intestine, they are generally not absorbed at the duodenum, but instead at the jejunum, the second division of the small intestine. It's the division that absorbs carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. These are organelles. Now, to access the actual body parts such as the organs or the bloodstream, these nutrients would need to be absorbed through the intestinal epithelial cells. Let's call them enterocytes. Remember when I mentioned the word transport, facilitated transport, active transport? What undergoes this process are called transporters. These are basically tubes that go through a cell, such as enterocytes. They are specialized ways for certain nutrients to get into the cell for whatever work it needs to do there. The transporters that carbohydrates go through in enterocytes are SGLT1, that is sodium glucose cotransporter 1. This transporter takes in glucose and galactose across the cell membrane. Then GLUT5, glucose transporter 5. This one facilitates absorption of fructose, a monosaccharide, across the cell membrane. These monosaccharides will have to leave the enterocytes, however. That's not where their work is. It's just the channel for them to reach the bloodstream through GLUT2, glucose transporter 2. From the bloodstream, they move via the hepatic portal to the liver. The liver is a dawn in the digestive system. If there was ever a kingpin in the body, it would definitely be the liver. when these monosaccharides reach the liver either converts fructose and galactose to glucose, which is the main monosaccharide that the body uses, or it uses those monosaccharides in other metabolic pathways. Pathways are basically series of reactions that occur consecutively. The glucose produced from those, or the glucose absorbed by the body, is either stored as glycogen or used by the body to make ATP. Remember, the energy currency of the body. Now we've spoken of the pounded yam. Let's go on to the stock and fresh fish. There are also different types of enzymes that break down proteins. The first ones are pepsins or protease. These are enzymes that break proteins into peptides. Peptides are just smaller forms of proteins. The thing is, your body doesn't exactly need that quality meat protein or fish protein you are eating. What it needs is the monomer or building block of those proteins. These are called amino acids, and there can only be 20 forms of amino acids your body needs. But those quality meats and fish you are eating contains nearly all of the essential amino acids. So that's why it's that expensive and damned quality. After the action of pepsins, certain enzymes called trypsins and chymotrypsins break down those peptides into even smaller or shorter peptides. Imagine a long rope being cut into small pieces. That's exactly what these enzymes are doing. Then lastly, enzymes called peptidases break down those smaller peptides into amino acids, the major thing your body needs from proteins. Some of these proteins are absorbed in the duodenum, the first division of the small intestine. However, majority of them are absorbed in the next division, the jejunum, where carbohydrates are also absorbed. How they enter into the enterocytes, that is, the cells that make up the intestinal walls, are through certain transporters such as sodium amino acid cotransporter. Now, these namings are straightforward. Sodium amino acid cotransporters basically means amino acids moving through the help of sodium movements against sodium electrochemical gradients. Let me quickly explain. Active transport will have caused sodium to move from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. This would cause an electrochemical gradient and make sodium force its way back into where it's concentrated lower. While forcing its way in or out back, it goes along with amino acids through the sodium amino acid cotransporter. That is basically how it works. Amino acids and short peptides also enter into the enterocytes through peptide transporter 1, PEP-T1. This transporter particularly focuses on dipeptides and tripeptides, short peptide chains that were not broken down by the enzymes that were meant to break them down. From the enterocytes, the amino acid exits into the intestinal capillaries. Then they go to the hepatic portal veins, the same ones carbohydrates went through, and head towards the liver. The nucleic acid contained in this fresh fish and stock fish are also broken down in the body to provide you with the building blocks of these nucleic acids for your body to be able to build newer ones, which your body would need and not the ones of fishes. Then there is the oil or fat that you use to prepare the vegetable soup. That one also gets metabolized through another path. It starts in the mouth. Certain enzymes called lingual lipase break down fats, and then in the stomach, more lipases called gastric lipase. They are just called those names according to where they are found, really. They continue the digestion. These lipases break down fats and oils, also called triglycerides, into monoglycerides and fatty acids. Triglycerides are basically glycerol with 3 fatty acids attached. When it's been broken down, 1 fatty acid is still left stuck with the glycerol and 2 fatty acids get released off. And then from the stomach on their way to the small intestine is where their breaking down really starts. The gallbladder an organ attached to the beginning of the small intestine, and also the organ that you mustn't bust open when butchering chicken for Christmas perhaps, releases bile salts. These bile salts purpose is to emulsify fats, that is, suspend them in a semi-solid state, forming micelles. Micelles are circular structures made by monoglycerides and free fatty acids. These micelles are then the ones that enter into the enterocytes. Triglycerides can't enter because they are very large molecules and quite complex too. When in the enterocytes, the free fatty acids and monoglycerides that formed the micelles earlier reassemble to form the triglycerides. The body is so cool, I know. The triglycerides reproduced are then packaged into what is called chylomicrons. These chylomicrons are basically lipids, that is fat and oil, remember, plus proteins. They are known as lipoproteins. Rather than going into the hepatic portal veins like carbohydrates and proteins, chylomicrons pass through the lymphatic system. From there, they find their way to enter the bloodstream via the thoracic duct. Now you know exactly what happens to every carbohydrate, protein, fat and oil that you eat at all. From the liver, where the amino acids for proteins you ate were transported to. These amino acids can then be used to synthesize the proteins your body particularly needs. All processes of breaking down in metabolism is called catabolism, and all processes of building up, such as this protein synthesis from amino acids, is called anabolism. Any excess amino acid undergoes deamination. Ammonia is produced from deamination, and that ammonia passes out of your body as urine through the urea cycle. Remember, ammonia has a pungent odor. That's the odor that comes from urine also. So the more odorful one's urine is, the more protein that person likely ate, or the more protein the person excretes out. For the fats and oils, or triglycerides, they are stored in the adipose tissue, and some are used for energy production through a process called beta oxidation, particularly in the mitochondria of cells. Then for water, certain enzymes in the mouth called waterase breaks down water molecules into there is nothing like that. Water passes through the gastrointestinal tract and gets absorbed in the small intestine and large intestine, and gets passively absorbed, that is, without the use of energy, in the small intestine and large intestine. Minerals such as sodium ions and potassium ions get absorbed in the small intestine, particularly the duodenum. And for vitamins, there are two types of vitamins. First is the fat-soluble vitamins, and then the water-soluble vitamins. There are 4 fat-soluble vitamins: vitamin K, A, D, and E. If you ever want to remember them, just learn the mnemonic KD. And then the water-soluble vitamins are vitamin B and C. The fat-soluble vitamins are absorbed with the micelles during the absorption of monoglycerides and free fatty acids, and the water-soluble vitamins are absorbed via transporters. A special vitamin, vitamin B12, necessary for red blood cell production, is absorbed in a rather unique way. It requires intrinsic factors. These are glycoproteins. We won't be delving into that in this episode. From certain stomach cells to be absorbed in the ileum, the third division of the small intestine. The fiber gotten from vegetable is a nutrient that can't be broken down by the body because it consists of very complex molecules that the human body doesn't have the enzymes to break down. Instead, it helps improve peristalsis of the gastrointestinal tract, the GIT, because fiber attracts water. Along with this fiber, dead cells and dead bacteria are compacted into feces. Water is reabsorbed from this package, if I could call it that, making the stool solid in the large intestine. And gut bacteria ferment fiber, producing gases such as H2, hydrogen, CH4, methane, CO2, carbon dioxide, or H2S, hydrogen sulfide. Now you practically know how fats are formed. So if you want less fats, you eat less fiber. And we've come to the end of this episode. As I promised you when we started, now you know the whole process that carbohydrates, vitamins, fiber, oil, minerals, proteins, nucleic acids, and even water follow to give you and I the nutrients we gain from them every time. Your body is now less a mystery to you because of this episode, and you now understand how and why you need to take care of yourself better. Look at all these enzymes and systems and transporters that do this work for you every time to make sure you still live. I'm David, a member of the BCH team, and our main objective still remains giving you knowledge and value that matter. See you in the next episode. Always remember, Jesus loves you.